navigating the process itself, navigating what enrollment looks like, what orientation looks like, and someone in their community that they can turn to when they need that little bit of help. That's what this mentoring role is, which I'll share in here in just a moment, but that's, also what our organization is doing. We've got, a staff of about 27 individuals who work really hard to make sure students are constantly supported throughout this process. And it isn't just simply a scholarship. It's really a holistic program that supports the student throughout their college going journey. So that's how the organization exists today. We administer the scholarship, we ensure students are meeting their deadlines, and we ensure students are up to date on college going requirements, and then report out to the state who is and is not eligible for Tennessee Promise. From there, the funds become available to the student. It hasn't always been this way. TNAchieves, actually predates the Tennessee Promise Scholarship by about five or so years. We began in Knox County, is a nonprofit organization, economic development initiative, working to provide the same sort of last dollar scholarship support for students specifically in Knox County. We grew over the coming 5 years into some of the state's largest counties by 2014, including Shelby County, Davidson County, really working across the state to offer last dollar scholarships as well as mentor support. But up to 2014, we were a privately funded organization, meaning not only were our operating costs privately funded, but the scholarship dollars were as well. What that meant was, while we wanted to continue growing this program and continue offering this sort of opportunity for students statewide, we had trouble in some of these communities finding private dollars to fund the scholarships. The ball game changed for us in 2014 because that's when then Governor Haslam introduced the Drive to 55 initiative, his program saying that by 2025, 55% of Tennesseans will need to have some sort of post-secondary credential to keep up with labor demands, economic demands, and ensure that the jobs that are coming into the state have the workforce there to greet them. The Drive to 55 is not an initiative that says by 2025, 55% of our state needs to, have a doctorate or a master's. Instead, one of the single biggest components of this program was the Tennessee Promise. It's essentially working to make sure that more high school seniors are aware that education opportunities exist in their backyard, whether that's a technical school, whether that's a community college. Ensuring that every student takes advantage of something beyond high school is really how we're going to meet this Drive to 55 goal and how we're going to reach this benchmark. The first class of Tennessee Promise students was almost 55,000 students large. Our most recent class, the class of 2020, had over 64,000 applicants across the state. So more and more students each year continue to take interest in this Tennessee Promise opportunity. And, that's something we're happy to be able to do. Any chance we get to work with more students on accessing higher education is helping to move that Drive to 55 goal forward, and it's helping to move our program forward. And the numbers show that this Tennessee Promise program and the non-financial support component truly is working for students across the state. A couple numbers that I want to share with you as we talk today. One being retention. Students using Tennessee Promise retain at a rate 9 points higher than their non-Tennessee Promise peers. But even better is the graduation number. Students using Tennessee Promise graduate at a rate 21 points higher than their non-Tennessee Promise peers. What those two metrics show is pretty simple. By removing the financial concerns of going to college, the question of how much debt do I have to take on, how many hours do I have to work to cover this semester's tuition, it allows students to focus on what truly matters in college, and that's going to class, that's studying, it's asking questions, using on-campus resources, and ensuring they're successful in the classroom. That's what that data point shows. And one other thing I would share with you is that Tennessee, since the introduction of Tennessee Promise, has led the nation in FAFSA filing. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. If you have filed a FAFSA recently, if you are familiar with the FAFSA, one thing you likely know about the FAFSA is that whether you are a student, whether you are an adult, it is confusing. The FAFSA is difficult. The FAFSA, it requires a lot of steps. It requires tax documents that many of our students haven't heard of before. It's complicated, simply put. And many times, historically, a first generation student, any student may sit down to do the FAFSA and simply feel overwhelmed, simply may feel like, I don't understand this and I don't think I'm going to do this. But since Tennessee Promise was introduced, since it was made a requirement for Tennessee Promise eligibility, we have seen FAFSA filing increase statewide. So much so that we lead the country consistently in FAFSA filing since the program was introduced. Last year, we achieved a new record at 90% FAFSA filing. And I think that speaks to the culture shift we're seeing across the state. The question is no longer for our students, why bother filing my FAFSA? What is the point of this? And more we see it's students coming into computer labs. It's nowadays hopping into Zoom rooms to ask, how can you help me file my FAFSA and make sure this is done on time? And that's exciting to see. In the interest of total transparency, there was 1 year since Tennessee Promise was introduced that we did not lead the nation in FAFSA filing. A few years ago, Louisiana beat us out by 1/10 of a percentage point or so. The key note here is, though, that Louisiana made it a legal requirement that in order to obtain your high school diploma, you complete the FAFSA. Here in Tennessee, we have not done that, and we were right there with them, and we reclaimed our title last year. So, certainly exciting to see this happening statewide. And, one thing I'm sure specifically to this year is that it goes without saying that students this year especially face so many challenges in terms of their post-secondary success, in terms of starting college successfully. And while college enrollment is down across the country, it's down across the state, we have seen Tennessee Promise students actually increase their enrollment this year. So that's exciting. And I think that speaks volumes to, not only the financial component that we're offering, but also the non-financial supports. And that kind of brings me to the next point, and that's the importance of mentors and why we recruit 9,000 mentors each and every year. The numbers that I've shared with you, the story of TNAchieves growth is not possible if not for volunteer mentors. The most recent class was over 64,000 students large. Our staff, as I've mentioned, is 27 people. We work hard to make sure students are supported, they have answers to their questions, and we're really committed to that. But it's a numbers game that we simply cannot win. We can't personally impact 64,000 students each and every year. We aren't in their communities in many cases, but mentors can do that. Mentors have that power, and that's why each and every year we're out there recruiting mentors, and we're working with mentors to offer that level of personal support that our team just can't. The mentoring role takes just 1 hour per month. It is not a huge time commitment, but it does make a huge difference for students. Since the beginning of our program, we've asked 3 essential roles of our mentors. It's a taskmaster, it's an encourager, and it's a resource. Being a taskmaster is exactly what it sounds like. There are not economic thresholds that students need to meet to be Tennessee Promise eligible. There aren't academic thresholds that students need to meet to be Tennessee Promise eligible at the beginning of their college career. But there are deadlines and there are dates that students need to meet in order to maintain their eligibility, including an 8-hour community service requirement, including a mandatory webinar that students need to view. In many cases, our students are not the most proactive group of humans on the planet. If we provide a July 1st community service deadline, they very well may not start thinking about that until June 30th. And that's where a mentor comes into play. The mentor is someone who a month in advance, maybe 2 months in advance, can reach out to that student, kind of nudge them to start thinking about these tasks. That way, they're not snowballing and waiting until the last minute to meet these deadlines. It is not a mentor's responsibility to do these things for their students. Ultimately, they're the scholarship recipient. They're the one going to college. It's their responsibility to complete community service, to, go to orientation, do these things. The mentor can just serve in that taskmaster role to help them stay on top of these tasks. We also have this resource piece. I've mentioned it already, but again, many of our students will be the first to go to college in their family. And that student does not always have a wealth of college going knowledge that they can fall back on in their house. And this isn't to say that their family doesn't want to help them be successful in the college going process, that they don't want them to be successful in this goal. But if no one's ever done it before, it can be overwhelming. And that's where a mentor is important. We're going to provide every mentor with a handbook, an hour-long training to guide them through the processes and typical questions that they'll encounter from students. So certainly part of the resource role is having the answers for students. When they come to you with a question, doing your best to answer that. But there's also a key note here that we don't expect mentors to have every answer to every question that a student might ask. We know students may have odd questions, really specific questions at times. And at that point, you can connect them with our staff, with someone at a college work to find someone that can help them to overcome that obstacle, to help get an answer to that question. Being a resource truly is just as much having the answers for students as it is a willingness to say, I honestly don't know. Let's find someone though who can help you here and get this question taken care of. Just recently, I had a mentor call me out of the blue one afternoon, and they said, "Hey, Tyler, how are you doing?" Introduce themselves. And then within 10 seconds of picking up the phone, they had said, "Okay, I'm connecting my student in." And we had a little conference call meeting right there, about 5 or 10 minutes, to help take care of some of her questions. That's a great example of this resource role. It's not necessarily, being all knowing in the college going space. It really is just connecting students with people who can help them and ensure they stay on the right path. Finally, we have the encourager role. I saved this one for last because I think in the year 2021, this is going to be the most important role that our mentors serve. We know that our students need encouragement. They will get down on themselves in the college going process. They will feel overwhelmed at times. They get in a rut and they feel like maybe this goal isn't something they can achieve. What we know is they absolutely can, but that's where the mentor is someone there to lift them up, someone there to keep them in a positive mindset throughout what can be a difficult process. We surveyed our 2020 students in March of this year, right as many students were shifting to virtual learning, right as all of the landscape was really shifting. And we asked, what's the most important thing we can do for you right now? And the most consistent response we received was offer encouragement. I imagine that if you ask those same students that question today, they would say the same thing. I imagine if you ask the 2021 students the same thing in the spring, they would say the same thing. I think most consistently, this is the role that our mentors serve. This is the difference that they make. Even if it's just one student in a group who needs a little bit of encouragement from time to time, this mentoring role has had an impact, and a mentor's work has had an impact in that moment. It's really these three roles. Our team is going to do everything we can to set mentors up for success. By that we mean we're going to provide that handbook. We're going to provide a training. We're going to provide weekly emails that update you on key program requirements and details that mentors need to know to be successful in working with their students. And in 2021 specifically, to Jim's point earlier on, we are working to ensure that this program and this role remains impactful during what we know is going to be a different looking year. It was really important for us when looking ahead in the coming year that we have a system set up that allows mentors to continue connecting with students in an impactful, constructive way without having to rely on in-person meetings. Historically, mentors have gathered in person in groups. We've gotten, parents together, counselors together, teachers together, students together, big group meetings. That simply is not going to be possible in the coming year. So what we've done is we've invested in a virtual mentoring platform known as TNAchieves Connect. And this is a platform that essentially allows mentors to build personal relationships with each of their students. It is very similar to something like a Facebook or a LinkedIn, but more in an insular environment. We're going to set up each mentor with their students in this platform. There's a really easy to use video chat platform there that allows you to schedule meetings and video chat face-to-face with each of your students. We're going to ask mentors in March and in the fall to set up about 10-minute calls with their students and connect with them. Build those relationships with them. And I actually think that this is going to allow for more personal, connected relationships with students in the next year. For anyone who's mentored before or who may be familiar with our program, historically, mentors have gathered in group settings. They've tried to get to know all of their students at once. And while this was great for getting the entire community together and talking with our students, it can be a group setting. It can feel overwhelming for a student. But by having these individual meetings, we think students are more likely to share with their mentor, and they're more likely to share their real concerns with their college going process. So it really is going to build a more connected relationship. And I would stress that, even just building that impactful relationship with 2 to 3 students, that's a difference that's been made. Those are the students we're trying to catch, we're trying to impact, who may have had nowhere else to turn in the college going process. So, mentoring really is about impacting that 1 or 2 students who may have needed the help and may have had nowhere else to turn. And we're excited with TNAchieves Connect to be able to build these more personal relationships and to see what becomes of these connections in the coming year, because it's going to allow our team to better monitor mentor-mentee connections and better support those connections in the coming year. We'll have new data, new information on what these connections look like. We'll be able to better support mentors and encourage students to connect with their mentors. So certainly something that, we weren't expecting to have to do in early spring of this year. We didn't think we would have to shift the platform, the mentoring program, to this virtual environment. But there are opportunities here, and we think it'll allow for more connected relationships in the coming year. A couple specific details on mentoring before I wrap up. Mentors are allowed to choose their high school, their county preference, as well as the number of students they're paired with. Each mentor can preference about how many they're willing to work with, and we'll base that when we go to pair in February. We provide that comprehensive training that fills mentors in on everything they need to know. And we really do work tirelessly with mentors and students throughout the year to ensure you're supported. This isn't something that we simply say, okay, here's your list, have at it. You are going to hear from us week in and week out to ensure you have answers to questions and you know where you can turn if you need that help. We really work hard to ensure our mentors are supported in the same way that our students are. Not only do all 64,000 of our students have my personal cell phone number, but all of our mentors do as well. So we're a very accessible team. We're happy to help whenever we can to ensure mentors and students have the tools necessary to be successful. As I wrap up, I want to share one brief story that I think illustrates well this mentoring role and its importance, and then I'll be happy to take whatever questions you may have. This is the story of one of our first students in Knox County. His name was Dalton. He was a first generation student. He was nervous ahead of his first day at Pellissippi. Understandably so, anyone would be. So he reached out to his mentor and said, what do I do tomorrow to have a good first day of classes? And his mentor gave him some good advice. He said, get there early, get a good parking spot, and sit in the front of your classroom. 3 pieces of advice that if Dalton did those 3 things, chances are he had a great first day. So he took the advice, he got there early, got his parking spot, but he hit a bit of a wall when he was walking around campus trying to find his building. And he had his schedule in hand and he had zoned in on a line that said MWF. So he's looking for building MWF, can't find it. Can't find it anywhere. He's walked around for 10 minutes, can't find building MWF. Finally, he texts his mentor. What he didn't want to do was ask someone on campus because he didn't want to ask what he thought was a dumb question. He was shy. So he finally did text his mentor and said, hey, where's MWF on campus? Well, his mentor quickly realized his mistake. MWF, of course, on the college schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Good news for Dalton was it was a Monday, so he made it on the right day. He just needed to look like 1 column to the right on his schedule to find the actual building that he needed to be in. His mentor gave him this advice. Dalton made it to class that day, and he got the help he needed. With this, what's really cool about this story is not just the fact, though, that Dalton made it to class that day. It's the fact that Dalton graduated from Pellissippi and went on to UT Knoxville and got a degree in forestry. That moment had an impact for Dalton, certainly. He could have very easily gotten in his car and gone home that day because he felt overwhelmed, because he was quite literally lost. But he didn't, because he had someone he could turn to get the help he needed to overcome that obstacle. For the mentor, it took maybe 10 seconds to respond to that text. Probably didn't think anything of it after that, but it had an impact for Dalton. It is challenging to start the college going process. It is challenging to start in the fall, but it is also very easy to leave. And Dalton could have done exactly that, and he very well could have never come back. But because he had that support system in place, that person he knew he could trust to turn to with that question, he was supported. And he had that great first day of classes and that great college career, in part because his mentor was there to support him. That is ultimately what this mentoring role is about. All of the nitty-gritty details that go into college going, our team is going to support students on. We're going to support you on as well if they ever do come up. Most of the time, the mentoring role truly is the encouragement, the little nudges that a mentor can personally provide that make the difference for a student. Whether it's one student or the whole group that a mentor impacts, it's a win. And it's so meaningful for our program, for our state, for the community, that volunteers are giving this hour a month and ensuring that every student has someone they can turn to just in case they need that little bit of help. I'll tell you, as I wrap up, we are just, as of today, about 11 days out from our mentor recruitment deadline on December 4th. We still need 1,900 mentors across the state to reach our goal. and almost 440 of those are in Shelby County. So if you are interested in serving, if you have questions, please let me know. Our application can be found on our website, TNAchieves.org. And again, feel free to reach out or ask any questions right now, because we'd certainly love to have you as a mentor. And we'd love to ensure that every student statewide has a local support system in the coming year. Thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity.
First of all, Tyler, I want to thank you for such an excellent presentation. I mean, you had to have notes, right?
A couple notes, but yeah, couple notes.
I suppose you get it off of it. You've really got it down pat. Well, I'll start the question process. This is a question I'm sure you've anticipated based on our prior conversations, and that is particularly here in Shelby County, the difficulty the students, particularly low-income students, have in going full-time to community college. And I've been saying this since I've been a mentor. It's one of the I think it needs to be thought about is how to support students who are going part-time because they've got to work. I mean, just that's the reality. The kids in Shelby County aren't the same as the kids in Knox County to a significant degree, given the level of poverty in this city. So I'd like you to address that. Are there any consideration being given to somehow developing a program for students that are working? And I mean, I personally got two advanced degrees at night and while working, and that's tough. But again, I had many more privileges than the students we have here. I'd like you to address that first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, very honest right off the bat, I can't speak to any sort of policy considerations or anything like that, because that is set at the state level. In terms of eligibility or requirements for Tennessee Promise, in legislation, students have to be full-time students to receive the scholarship. Now, this year, there have been some adjustments due to COVID to ensure students can enroll part-time and maintain their eligibility. But moving forward, there's been no sort of permanent changes to that policy. So, that does remain a requirement. Now, on the TNAchieves end, what I can share is we are always looking at new sort of innovative programs that we can offer students to ensure that they have the supports necessary to maintain Tennessee Promise while still doing everything they need to do to be successful at home, and that, earning a paycheck, working certainly among those. One thing we do for students, and some of our most at-risk students, those low-income students who we know are going to college, we assign them a coach from our team. And that's someone who is proactively working with them. Not so much, I mean, they are working with them in the transition to high school to college, but specifically in their college career. So those 2 years, they have someone from our staff proactively reaching out to them to find out what their needs are, to find out how they can be supported and kind of guided through the college going process. And a lot of that from our team is proactively working with them to ensure they can keep up with everything they need to at home, while also keeping up with everything they need to be successful as a college student. Now, to your point, this isn't always easy. Some students do have pretty immense demands at home. And our team, in a way that we hadn't prior to the introduction of this program a few years ago, have more ears to the ground on these things now. And we're proactively talking to some of our most at-risk students to ensure we can adapt the program and move it where it needs to go to better support those students. So while at this time there are no permanent policy shifts in place regarding that, we are always looking to ensure that we can better support students and offer them the resources and the support they need to be successful. It's an excellent point and a good question.
Good. Thank you. I've got a question in the chat box from Denise. Denise, do you want to ask it or should I read it? You have to unmute.
Thank you. I've had a little experience here, and what I sense is that people say, well, why should I really go to college? Why should I make this effort? That I have friends who have gone to college and they're still unemployed and can't get a job, or I make so much more money already working that why should I do it? I get money right now and I go without money if I go to college. And then secondly, I guess that would be the first question. And then the second one would be is parental cooperation, that some people say, well, you know, my parents don't file taxes, or they won't tell me what their income is, or they don't share that information with anybody. How can I fill out the FAFSA when I don't have the information?
Well, to address the second question, and then I'll circle back to the first. You know, that is a challenge for many students. Our team works as best we can to work with parents. And what that means is we send every parent home a handbook. We are reaching out to them weekly with information about the program and FAFSA requirements and these steps that are going to need to be taken. And we do whatever we can to support students in those situations, because it's challenging. You know, many students do encounter that, you know, getting mom and dad's financial records is not as easy as anyone would like, as we would like, as they would like. These are real obstacles that students face. And we work really proactively with high school counselors as well to ensure that we're identifying the students who still need to complete this task, still need to file their FAFSA, and doing whatever we can to communicate to students, parents, this need. You know, it truthfully is, it's an obstacle for many students. And a lot of that just has to do with how can we make parents better aware of these processes and ensure that they're up to date on what needs to happen. And we are working to collect parent information, communicate these needs home, and ensure students are supported that way. Addressing question one regarding, you know, kind of the messaging of why college is important. You know, the average wage for students who do not obtain a college credential in Tennessee is about $10,000 or $11,000 per year. It is not a livable wage. And that's where, you know, we work to message to students that in order to secure financial security, in order to secure, you know, this sort of prosperity in your career and in your home life, this is going to be a necessary step. I think one thing we find in going out to high schools is that, you know, the messaging right off the bat of you can attend college and do so without the concern of how am I going to pay for it, it sticks with students. And that's why we see more and more students apply each and every year. It's really about ensuring they continue to keep their eye on this ball throughout their college going journey. A lot of that has to do with those summer months as well. We find that many students will graduate high school fully intending on going to college, but to your point, as they earn a larger paycheck, as they work more hours, that starts to speak to them. But we find when mentors consistently reach out to them during this time, when they continue to hear from our team during those summer months, someone they hear from really proactively during this time, that they're a little more goal driven, they're a little more focused, and they keep their eye on that ball. So ensuring students are kind of constantly keeping their eye on this college going goal is an important piece of that as well.
Okay, we've got in the chat box Susan and then Shirley. So Susan was first. Is the time commitment 1 hour per month or 1 hour per mentee? And then I'll go to Susan. Go ahead.
1
hour
hour
for the whole group, right?
For the whole group. Yep.
Yeah. That's what my kids.
We've heard consistently from mentors over the year that this is about all it takes. Even with the shift to virtual mentoring, we anticipate that this is going to hold steady. We will not ask mentors for more than an hour a month.
And then on FAFSA, none of them had to fill out a FAFSA before they reach this point. It's a last dollar scholarship. I think I can respond to that. The FAFSA covers everything. It covers both TNAchieves, other types of Pell Grant scholarships, et cetera. You just have to do the FAFSA once, but it is daunting. I'm glad with my children I didn't have to do it, and I did it. My parents did it for me a long time ago. It's a lot simpler, but it is done. And then the second one is from Shirley. Were you considering job shadowing at their place of employment? And I think I can answer that as well, Shirley. For the community service, job shadowing is an acceptable set of hours. I know one of the mentees that I had, I was doing job shadowing. My successful mentee was doing job shadowing.
Can you hear me? Excuse
yes,
me.
Shirley.
Okay, that wasn't the question. The question was, I wrote that, you're reading what I wrote though, don't misunderstand. But I was hoping I got a chance to ask Tyler. And I want to say hi to Tyler. This is Shirley Key. But I wanted to know, because of the students that we have are so dependent on the job, that why can't they do job shadowing where they work, even though maybe it's a day that they're not being paid? They understand that they cannot do job shadowing at their workplace. Does that make sense? Do you understand my question, Tyler? Okay.
Yeah,
And
no,
my question,
it makes sense.
my question is, would you start trying to consider allowing them to do that as long as it is a day that they do not get paid? Because otherwise they have to, with the mentor also, they have to find another place and another time. And that job that they're on is probably going to be the job that they probably will stay on if they don't go to college. But at the same time, it'll give them an opportunity to explore more of that job without having to leave their community or find a way. I find out that my groups have a problem with transportation, going to shadow someone else or some other place. So I just want you all to think about considering letting them use the job that they are employed at, this part-time job, but when they have an opportunity to have a full day, to give the 8 hours, to let them consider using that job as the shadow in place. Thank you.
I can certainly take that feedback back to our community service team and kind of, it's an excellent point. One thing I would stress, especially with job shadowing, is a lot of the goal of job shadowing, especially as it relates to community service, is giving students insight into what a college credential can get them, where a college credential can end them in terms of a career. So, kind of getting a student outside of their day-to-day and maybe exposing them to, a business professional, a nurse, educator, getting them that insight is a lot of our intention with the job shadowing program. We've worked to adapt this opportunity in the past in the past 6 months or so to allow online community service for our students. So that's online job shadowing webinars, college preparedness webinars. So offering that to help resolve the transportation problem, but also the safety issue related to COVID-19. But it's an excellent point, and I can certainly take it back to the team. We do try with the job shadowing program, though, to kind of expand a student's horizon, set them up with an opportunity that can gain them exposure to where college can get them. And we also offer job shadowing days. We have historically, and hope to again when things are safe, where we set up opportunities for students where they can job shadow in their community. And we partner with Hilton, University of Memphis to offer those in Shelby County recently.
I want to follow up because I think Shirley's point is an excellent one as well. An example may be, and again, going to the person that I worked with who worked in a Walgreens part-time.
Yeah.
And that person, if they could shadow the manager,
Exactly.
I think that's what you have in mind,
Yes.
Shirley, the manager there at the Walgreens, that has two things. One, it gives them a better relationship with their manager who's reinforced, hey, this kid wants to shadow me, he must think his life, which gives them a leg up the job. But it does give them a chance to, right there where they're familiar, have the transportation network to be able to do that. And I think that would be the type of thing you're talking about. And even the manager of McDonald's, I mean, that to understand what they do, to manage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Considering if they don't do that job shadowing, they cannot qualify. That's one of the things that disqualifies them. They have to complete that job shadowing training.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
That was a great point, Shirley. Okay, I've got one in here from Dustin. Does TNAchieves offer any assistance for room and board?
Tennessee Promise does not, but that's because it's applying for community colleges, technical colleges. In most all cases, students will be living at home or in their community and won't necessarily be living on campus.
No, we don't have a Tennessee, and you're from Iowa, so we don't have anything like Kirkwood, which is where my daughter went.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's a great community college where she was actually in a dorm situation. I've been saving that one, Tyler.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting a Kirkwood College reference here today.
Kirkwood's a very fine community college in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It's one of the best community colleges in the country. So anyway, are there any other questions anyone would like to bring up? I don't see anything else in the chat.
I would like to make a comment. If you, Tyler says it's 1 hour. 1 hour is if we're in our groups, but I think I usually spend more than 1 hour with my mentees each. I don't know if that's poor time management on my part, but it's a little more than.
It's a commitment.
It is a commitment. So if you really do it and do it well, and especially with students that have not had anyone, is the first time family member going to college, it takes a little bit more time, but it's worth it. But I wouldn't go in thinking that I can spend per month. I have 8 students. I've had 10 that you can do 1 hour with all those students, and that's not. You don't do a good job. I don't do a good job. I'll put it like that. I don't do a good job at 1 hour, and I don't mind. I usually take each student a day, so I get about 2 or 3 hours talking to them and making sure. So it's like 1 hour, but 1 hour can't get one student almost with me.
I would add too that I saw your name pop up, and you go above and beyond for students as well. So you certainly certainly making an impact there.
Well, I work hard at it. Plus, I'm at my alumni school, so I enjoy it and I like it. And it helps the student, it benefits the students. And I am looking forward to this year because of the last semester we were on the computer, virtual rather. And it was a little straining for them because they weren't used to signing on anything. It was kind of new to everybody. So I'm looking forward to see if we can do better this semester with them.
No, well, we certainly appreciate that. And I mean, the hour a month is recommended, and we found that mentors can stick to that, or we stick to that pretty well, but you can certainly go above and beyond.
Yeah.
So that for sure.
I've got a question in the chat box from Denise, and I'm going to ask Tyler to close his ears when I answer my perspective. How often do mentors end up providing transportation, clothing for school, or internships, etc.? I think the rules as I recall them, you're not supposed to, for liability reasons, transport students yourself. Yeah.
That's correct. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
That's correct. But
Sorry, yes.
in practical situations, I have taken students to Shelby State for their registration, and I just did it just because that's what you need to do. Clothing, no. I guess if you have an actual internship, if you've got the type of employment where you can hire someone as an intern, I'm sure that's okay, Tyler. But yeah. But I mean, sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Yes.
I just, I've experienced where I provided like a suit for a guy to do a job interview because he had to have some sort of income. Mm-hmm. It was just, it was fairly easy to do, but it was just showing how difficult it was for someone to even keep appearances in order to do it. And I donated a lot of ladies' suits to the Kimmons Wilson School, similarly, because they had an internship program. They had so many students that didn't have decent clothing in order to do their internships, and it was still a required thing for them to get their degrees. It may be less difficult for a community college, but and I have a friend who's taken several people privately under her wing, and she just does all sorts of things, takes them to SAT test and helps them prep, does all sorts of things that are just wonderful what she's done. And she's sort of seen a number of kids actually graduate from college and even go to graduate school now. But I mean, she basically became their parents.
I would also, put a plug in if you're ever mentoring someone, if they're thinking between Shelby State, Southwest. Yeah, it's Southwest and TCAT, Tennessee College of Applied Technology, has an incredible placement rate because of the extreme need in the area for technically trained people. And my very, very successful mentee relationship graduated from TCAT and actually went to the graduation, and you see the range of skills that they can teach. I mean, of course, if you're good at math, you can do this. I mean, from airline mechanics, and FedEx just eats them up. Just, I mean, comes right out of there. The young man I mentors and got a 2-year degree in industrial mechanics, and he's working. He got briefly laid off due to the COVID, but he's back working in his field. I mean, TCAT is the hidden resource that we have, and to encourage folks. I mean, you can still go on and get your 4-year degree, but to get a high wage job within 2 years. I mean, starting off as a plumbing assistant, they get $21 an hour, and to encourage young people to look at TCAT and to think about, gee, in 2 years I can be out and I can be earning well above $15 an hour, and benefits.
Yeah.
So that's the hidden resource we have, and that's where the job demand is for people with that 2-year technical background that can go walk right in. As I said, if you're good enough to get into the airline mechanic school, I mean, the employers are in line waiting for you. And same for people that do the tech work for logistics and auto mechanics.
Definitely.
Demand's there.
More tech relationship with a lot of the auto dealerships is really going very, very well. And those people get great jobs, and it's a win-win for everybody. So, you know, hooking up with something like that is a great way to place people. I don't know. I don't think they have to have FAFSA or it's community college. Tyler, do you know what sort of academic requirements or other things are required for that particular school, Vortex auto mechanic school?
I do not off the top of my head. One thing I want to touch on at this point, though, I mean, one of the great things about TCATs, to your point, Jim, I mean, their programs are custom tailored to the community that they're in. So, you know, in Shelby County, it's airline mechanics, right? It's these jobs for FedEx. But, you know, there are 26 other TCATs across the state, which have programs that are custom fit to that community to ensure that employers there can hire these students right after they earn their credentials. So it's a fantastic opportunity for students that helps to attain those placement rates, because the jobs and the demand it's there. The program's tailored to that need.
Can they, do they have to, what am I going to say? Do they have to register for a community college like Southwest here in Memphis or Shelby County, and then go to TCAT, or can they just go to TCAT straight out of high school?
Straight out of high school to TCAT.
They don't have to sign up for Southwest and be approved as, okay.
I mean, TCAT is a 2-year program. You come out with an associate's degree, and I mean, even cosmetology, or something like that.
Yeah, it may have been something going on that first year, because my first year, the group that I had, they had to sign up at Southwest, and then they transferred to TCAT. That's why I'm asking. I don't remember that last year, but the first year,
it may be for some programs, Shirley, if that there's a prerequisite for TCAT. I can't think of any. Tyler, do you know?
You know, I can't off the top of my head. You know, sometimes students will find themselves in a situation where, I mean, you know, they can knock out some classes and then they decide to transfer. But there are unique situations, but off the top of my head, I don't know of any programs that would require that sort of transition. No.
Got a question from Dustin. Are scholarships primarily for recent high school graduates or open to anyone with a GED?
So Tennessee Promise is available for high school seniors transitioning directly into college. The state does have another program known as Tennessee Reconnect, which offers the same sort of last dollar scholarship support for students returning to college, adult learners finishing credentials, or going for the first time. So there are opportunities really for all sorts of learners.
What's the minimum number of students you can mentor? So if someone wanted to mentor and couldn't do 8 or 10, they could do, what could they do?
We pair each mentor with at least 5 students.
5, okay.
But, and I always like to mention this, we find consistently that of those 5, mentors are generally working with 2 to 3 on a consistent basis. Some of those students will be like self-starters.
Right, they are.
Some will be self-starters, but unfortunately, some will just not be responsive. I set my boundaries as a mentor, saying, I will reach out to you. You need to get back with me. If you don't get back with me, I'm assuming you're not interested. And that's the boundaries that I've set with ones, and I end up working with maybe 2 at best, typically 1, because the others are just, if somebody's, my time, I'm being selfish here, but my time's important. And if you're willing to be responsive to me, I'm there for you. But if you're not willing to be responsive, I'm not going to chase you down. And that's, again, Tyler, maybe you need to close your ears on that one too.
Well, I just wanted to stress to that point that, we are very aware, working with mentors, that there are challenges in terms of student responses. They're not, in many cases, the most accessible humans on the planet. But we find that when a mentor, when persistence is there, when a mentor continues to reach out, over time, the student may feel more comfortable asking that question or reaching out with a concern because they know that they're trusted, or that mentor is someone who is there to help. And we hear from mentors that sometimes students quite literally do not reach out until the moment at which they need help, until they're up against a wall and they're just not sure where else to turn. I heard from a mentor recently who had a student reach out and they said, I know I haven't responded to you in literally months, but I've been seeing your messages this whole time. They've been encouraging me. They've been keeping me positive. But it made a difference in this moment where I needed your help, and thank you. That's what we see sometimes. Many students have never had someone from the outside world step in and take an interest in their success. They really honestly do not know how to manage that super well. It's unfortunate. We wish that wasn't the case, but it's that trust, that persistence builds up, and that's what makes a difference. And even if it's just one student that responds, that's a win, and that's mentoring making a difference. That's, we're casting a wide net to ensure that one student has someone they can turn to, even if it is, just that one student. They've found someone.
Well, I think we're at 6:30. How do you handle our speaker? Do you send them virtual brownies these days, or what?
As best I can. Yeah, I just jam them into the screen in the front of the computer and hope it gets through. It's
Perfect.
Thanks, Tyler. That was great.
Of course. Thank you.
And Sean,
Tyler, we have something even better than brownies. It's just on the way. Just keep looking for it, okay?
Oh, absolutely. Will do.
I wanted to tell you that I don't know if you have this on record, but Jim has a side hustle, and his side hustle is TNAchieves. He has been preaching TNAchieves to us for years.
Well,
and we have several other men. I mean, Shirley, but Adele, Ingrid. So this is probably your little nest here. So you'll have to come visit us again. This is very wonderful, so great to have you with us. And our past few Zoom meetings have actually been focusing on direct service and mentoring. So this is another win-win for us, and we appreciate you coming, and we will be in touch. And I'm sure Jim has his pencil out and probably is taking names tonight to let us know who will now be mentors.
Well,
I love that. There were familiar faces and names that I saw, so happy to have the and Jim, thank you so much.
Sure. Glad to help. It's important, important work.
It is.
Just get, 1 out of 5 through community college. That's good.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to mention, just to sort of loop around, one of the Rotary's objectives, and for not only this year, but for a while, has been about ACEs, the adverse child experiences. And when you think about TNAchieves, that actually is and will fit into our goals with just working with ACEs. So
Yep.
this is a win-win for us. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, Bill, thank you. We appreciate it.
Charlotte, may I ask another question? Is it
Yes.
possible for Rotary to send out, if Tyler will give you some information, send it out to every member in our group so that they may have an opportunity to read it and maybe fill out the form and get back with Tyler? I'm finding out with other groups that once they get the paper in hand and understand what it is, they respond at a much higher rate than just hearing the presentation. And I'm just wondering, is it possible to send some information to all the members
Why
of
don't
the
you send it?
club?
Yeah, send it to me tomorrow or tonight or whenever you get a chance, Shirley. Send
No,
it
I
to
want
me and
Tyler
then
to
we'll.
send it. I want
Yeah,
Tyler to
Tyler
send
needs
it.
to send
you
you a
want Tyler
link
to
to the
send it.
sign
to
up.
send
I
it,
think,
yes.
yeah, Shirley
Yeah.
wants a link to the sign up.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can share
so
it.
I think that I've always heard, if you don't know, just say I don't know. So I'll have to check on it because I'm not sure about how that would work.
We just send, if Tyler sends you the link to the sign up for Tennessee Promise, you just send it out to all the members.
Oh,
you know.
Tyler's gonna send it to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler
Yes,
sent it to you,
yes.
and then you would distribute it to the members saying, follow up, here's the link to sign up to Tennessee Promise as a mentor, because you can, all you do is just click on the link and they'll show you how to sign it up.
Yeah, great. Thank you. See, Tyler, that's your wingman. I got it now, Jim. Thank you.
Right there. I found him.
Any other questions, comments before we let Tyler go? I know you might feel like we got you shackled tonight, Tyler, but we really appreciate you coming and just being a part of our group. And when you're in Memphis and it's not virtual, please come by.
Yeah,
We've
absolutely.
got some brownies for you.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, yeah. And we also have other friends and families that are not actually members of Rotary that are with us tonight that have also shown interest in TNAchieves.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions or anything, just reach out. Or you can ask Jim too. He's an expert as well. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, we know about Jim and the wingman. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Oh, I have one other thing. Mike has an announcement, and Ellen.
Oh,
Good evening, all. I'm working on a project for Christmas for St. Peter's Home that we have 260. Can everybody hear me?
yep.
We have 260 residents that are shut in. I think we've all felt COVID in one form or another. And these folks don't have family, friends, or others at Christmas, and let alone at Thanksgiving. And I've arranged and purchased chocolates and cards, and Ellen has been working with me on Christmas cards, and I'd like to get 260 of them. Char's done 40, I've done 40, and I do have the cards. But if you can bring cards, I have a cooler on my front porch at 1355 Peabody. If you could just drop the cards off. I've made arrangements with the staff. We can't be present, unfortunately, with T-shirts or anything to hand them out this year because of the virus. But the staff there has Madonna. I guess one of the other groups is giving food and other things, but they had nothing in terms of a gift. So I'm proposing I bought the chocolate and I do have cards if you need them. I will put them in a bag on my front porch. If you don't have Christmas cards or the ability to make them, we can have them. And if you just put Merry Christmas on the envelope and then sign it Memphis, Midtown Rotary, Mike, Char, Will, Joe, whoever, and then seal the envelopes, I will take them over to St. Peter's. And the reason that I've done this is kind of twofold. My father was the last of 8 children born in Scotland. And we asked him when he was 100 years old what he remembers about Christmas. And it was the one piece of chocolate and the only thing that he got at Christmas. And he consumed about 2 pounds of chocolate when he was 100. So it actually had an impact on his life. And So I'm doing this. I think it's something that will be well received by the residents, and it's a lasting memory that they will have something at Christmas other than four walls to look at and remember.
Mike, just to make sure.
Just to ask for clarification,
Sure.
can we just like drop off in the cooler on your porch Christmas cards that we have in our,
Sure.
sign a Midtown Rotary gym and just drop them off on your porch? Is that the ask?
That's what I would like. And like I said, we have 80 of the 260. So, if 8 or 9 more people could do a few, 40 of them, we'd be home free. And I've already gotten the candy and purchased it. And the chocolates are in my possession, and St. Peter's would welcome both. So.
Okay. Is there a due date?
Yes, due date.
Yeah, I really need these by the 10th of December.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
I must
Mike, are they personalizing these at all? I mean, or is somebody just getting a generic card, or would it say Mary or Jane or Howard or
No, we
anything on
can't. Unfortunately, they don't have access to either the post office or they're in the building itself. I can't put candy and a personal card in their box.
I understand. I just didn't know whether the staff that's there write somebody's name on it so that it just doesn't seem like.
No,
Okay.
unfortunately, we can't because they don't know who's going to pick it up or how many. So.
Okay, thank you.
And Mike, I might have misunderstood the email I got, but the cards that my students made are actually Thanksgiving cards. So
Okay.
I don't know if y'all can use them. Charlotte had asked me to show a few, but they're real cute. And especially our girls' mascot is the turkey. So maybe that's why I had that in our head, but they have lots of cute little like homemade cards.
I'm sure they would love it. Personalized cards are just.
But I don't. And one girl, they did 2 like together. Charlotte asked me to show them, but they're cute little turkeys, and they had the sweetest messages in the cards. So, but I have 40 of those, but I don't know how many residents total are there.
260 is
Oh,
what our,
Lord.
yeah.
Okay.
So I have the cards. I have,
Okay.
I went out and purchased 260, and they're different ones. Some more generic than others, and some Christmas and some not.
Okay.
I will leave a bag on my front porch. They come in boxes of 14. If
Okay.
you just want to sign off on them and put Merry
Okay.
Christmas and,
Okay. So do we
Midtown,
want
Memphis, Ellen.
So are we supposed to use your cards, Mike, or can we just bring our own from our?
Bring either way, whichever
Either
way.
way, okay,
Let's
great.
just get a number. I'm more concerned about getting the cards.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And
What's the
Ellen,
address?
I'm sure these residents, knowing their age and so forth, Thanksgiving, Christmas, just
Okay.
having something personalized would be great
Okay,
for
but
them.
I mean, our students would love to do Christmas. They actually asked me for Christmas, and I said, "Oh no, we're doing Thanksgiving first." So I messed it up, but they'll be on Christmas because they
All right, well,
Christmas and Hanukkah.
all right.
What's
Any
the
other
address again?
questions?
Mike, what's the address again?
It's 1355 Peabody. We're 2 homes off of Cleveland.
I'm gonna put it in the chat with a good bit of this information if anybody wants to just copy it or
If anyone
screenshot it.
has any further questions, knowing our time is limited, please put my phone number. My cell phone is 765-532-4908.
Got it.
I'd be happy to help, or if you need these cards delivered to your house or your limited transportation, I'll be happy to drop them off too.
And I'd like to show a card that I had. This was actually Denise's idea. This is an old card that I had. I recycled it and cut it out and put the Christmas message on the back.
Oh, love it.
Of course, it's upside down or downside up or whatever, but and then just stuck it in an envelope.
Yeah.
So that worked too, to make it a little bit more personal and homemade.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going for. I signed the front with Merry Christmas and, then put because we don't have any identification for Midtown Memphis Rotary, I signed it Midtown Memphis Rotary Mike. So
Thank you so
Anyway.
much.
I would appreciate any and all help on this because I know the residents would love to see something at Christmas other than my smiling face.
And I'll send something out this week also to all the members
Okay.
with
Well,
the follow-up with your information.
The cards and the cooler are on my front porch next to the door. If anybody needs to access them, just pull in the driveway.
Tyler, you can send some too.
All right.
Will, is that it?
That's it. Hope you all have a good evening. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, happy Thanksgiving,
Thank you.
everybody.
Stay safe.
Well done.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you,
Happy
Tyler.
Thanksgiving.